So thanks very much for coming, Jim.
I'm going to start with passing around some photos. You'll see some of the photos up here. As you could tell, they're not particularly edited or in any order, but we were, as you could understand, we were all, normally quite busy trying to organise ourselves and where we were going and the route we were having to take as we came upon obstacle and obstacle. Well, thanks, Mary, again, and thanks for inviting myself. As Mary said, I'm Jim Malone. I'm a Dundee firefighter. I have been for a long time now. I won't say how long. I work out of Balmossy Fire Station. I'm currently the regional organiser for the Fire Brigade Union in Scotland. The Fire Brigade Union, I'm sure you are all aware, has had a long-standing commitment to the Palestinian people's desire and quite right for self-determination. Going back, as I say, over 25 years when we're General Secretary at the time was Ken Cameron, the Fire Brigade Union were involved in early visits and early contact with trade unionists and the civic society as such as there was in Palestine at the time. And over those 2.5 decades, that link has grew stronger through the ability to get in touch through computers, through emails, through text, through phone. Everything's become much easier and the world's became much smaller. So in the last few years that contact has really started to picking up speed. We've had a couple of big visits to Palestine with Executive Council international members in the last decade, and they kicked off a process where we were able in 2009 to invite 8 firefighters from Nablus, Dundee's twin city, to come to the UK and to get training, and that training was to bring them up to speed of where the UK Fire and Rescue Service was, in no way dictating to them this was the best way or wrong way. We've obviously got access to a better procedure, safe systems of work equipment, and obviously understood once we got there that so much of their fire service was formed under the mandate, and actually the way that they went about their training in the 30s, 40s and 50s was very much along the same lines as the UK Fire and Rescue Service at the UK Fire Brigades were at the time. However, when we brought them over here in 2009, they quickly realised that they did lack not only some pertinent skills, but they lacked basic equipment that now is taken for granted in Western Europe, I would probably say, and most of fully civilised society. They made it quite clear to us that the training would help them. They would be able to impart that training when they went back, but they also, on request, said that they would really like some of the kit and equipment that we used, and in particular the personal protective equipment, something we obviously take for granted every single day when we go to work. We're able to change in a clean kit, we're able to change into our own kit. We've got a kit that now is advanced and it's checked and tested for carcinogenics, it's tested for safety and heat, it has burn tests, wet tests, it is tested to make sure that FBU members in the UK are safe and secure when they enter hazardous environments. I'm afraid in Palestine I couldn't say the same. The kit that they have in Palestine is shared. The kit in Nablus was shared. There's a 3-watt system in Palestine. You work 24 hours and you're off for 48, so you're on 24 hours, but when you change your shift at 7 o'clock in the morning, you pass on that kit to another firefighter, who passes it on again to another firefighter. Now if you've been at an incident during the night, that kit doesn't get cleaned, so you could understand that they've got real concerns about health and safety. Their fire helmets, the IDF, the Israeli Defence Force, are of the opinion that they can be used as weapons. So again, they're denied the use of proper structural fire helmets. Breathing apparatus sets, using a term like hen's teeth. They share one to a fire engine. Now, a fire engine, a fire appliance in the UK, a fire appliance turning out from up the road at Blackness Road tonight, I'll have a BA set for every firefighter who's expected to enter that hazardous atmosphere. They're sharing them, and the maintenance profile is very low as well, so the turnaround is something like 20 years between the sets, and some of the sets, and they're not all the same type, are actually, we just wouldn't touch them, they're dangerous. However, it's all they've got. So we determined when I left, and as I say, that visit in 2009, again, we've got the programme there, the comrades that came over, and that visit to Dundee marked, really marked a turning point in relations between Region 1 Scottish FPU and the firefighters in Nablus. I was tasked as a regional organiser to go ahead and launch this project. It was a project that obviously was always going to be difficult. Obviously the politics of the Middle East is well known. There's many people here of more experience of the Middle East than I have. But we also understood that the need for emergency equipment was exacerbated obviously by Operation Cast Lead, and we attempted to get equipment into Gaza. We did succeed in getting some in through George Galloway's journey, but also in another trip that was made at humanitarian, we managed to get some kit into Gaza. Unfortunately at the time, some of it was taken by the Egyptian army, stole the boots that we'd sent, some really good boots, they were stolen, and also obviously we had kit and equipment on the boat that was raided, and that kit was taken and impounded in, I think that was the Israeli port, the more southern port, they impounded it there, and it's yet to be released, it's been kept there. So that kit never reached. We decided that the kit that they asked for is what we would try and deliver. So they wanted PPE, they wanted jackets, they wanted trousers, they wanted boots, they wanted helmets, and they wanted breathing apparatus sets if we could find any. At last year's annual conference, we started to raise the necessary funds that we thought would be required, and we had some terrific assistance from the Dundee Nablus Twinning Association. We had some great assistance from the Lord Provost Fund, and individual donors gave us funds, and along with the money that was raised through Fire Brigade Union Ordinary members up and down the country, we managed, we believe, to have a kitty to go ahead. So we had to then source the kit. There's a charitable company called Florian UK who deliver kit and equipment for fire and rescue events, earthquakes, for Southern America Fire Service particularly, that started off assisting in the Balkans at the time of the war there, but they developed now to more helping at humanitarian events. So we managed to access some kit from there through Region 5, which is the Greater Manchester and Merseyside area. Steve Harman and Kevin Brown were of great assistance through their contacts with Florian. We got kit and equipment from International Rescue, whose lead officer Dave Kay has delivered throughout the world. Dave's based in Dunfermline at Riri, so Dave became what we believe were the head of logistics. He's used to doing that. He knew the paperwork that we would need, he knew the driving paperwork, he knew the export paperwork we would need. So we brought him on board. So with Steve Harman and Dave Kay, that was a good start. We accessed 150 sets of fire kit, we accessed 90 fire helmets, we accessed 100 brand new pair of fire gauntlets, we accessed 90 pairs of new fire boots, and we accessed, through International Fire and Rescue, 20 breathing apparatus sets. Now, in Nablus at the moment, they've got they had four sets to do an area, as you know, the size of Dundee area, which is quite incredible. However, we got that kit, and what we had to decide is how we were going to deliver it. And that was a brainchild of mine, that we decided to try and access a couple of fire engines that normally get put to auction when a fire engine's reached its sell-by date, which is usually 20 years, around the 20 years time, 15 years for others, but 20 years normally they would take them to auction and they would sell them. So we decided to buy them off them, albeit at an inflated price in my opinion, but we did manage to obtain them. We decided to go overland, The logistics issue became even more problematic as the situation in the Middle East deteriorated through, or maybe not deteriorated, but mostly deteriorated through the Arab Spring, through the continuing unrest in Syria, through the state of war that still exists between Lebanon and Israel. We visited and wrote to the embassies of all the countries we believe we would have to go through, and at the last minute we decided to go the route that we eventually took. We contacted the British embassy, we contacted the Israeli ambassador to inform them of our plans, and waited on a response. We were in touch through the Middle East section of the Foreign Commonwealth Office. We informed them again of our plans, we waited on a response. We had contacted by this time on an unofficial line the Israeli history group, which, as you can imagine, with my history was quite difficult to do. However, what I did ask them was, because we had contacts at Haifa port, and that was the port that now seemed we would have to take it into, because we were hoping to take it into Tripoli in Lebanon, and not because of the Syrian situation. We just had to keep moving further south, further south, further south. So we had to really bite the bullet. Do we want to deliver the kit? Do we have to swallow some pride? Do we have to maybe go against our principles? But we did contact the history group. The history group gave us an assurance they would assist. But the quid pro quo was they wanted to enter into dialogue with us. It was a difficult decision for us to take, particularly in Region 1, where obviously our recent resolutions to the STUC, TUC on BDS, they've all been led by TASA, they've all been led by Region 1 in Scotland to the national conference, and we have recently led obviously the disaffiliation process for the history group. So as I say, we were really in a difficult bind. But we believed that quite simply for the benefits of the Palestinian firefighters and the Palestinian people, that this solidarity was more important than the politics, unfortunately, that we have to play. So we did contact us, who gave us assurances that they would attempt to assist us as long as we entered into dialogue with them. Our Executive Council were very cagey about it at that time, but they did agree with us that we should go ahead if at all possible. We managed to obtain two very helpful early day motions, one for the Scottish Parliament by Joe Fitzpatrick and one from the Westminster Parliament by Jim McGovern. These attracted wide support, and I have to be honest and say it was multi-party support. They didn't go along party lines. They very much looked on it as a humanitarian aid project, and that assisted us when we met with Alistair Burke, the Foreign Commonwealth Office, to try and again gain some assistance from the UK government, who we know have been making some sympathetic arguments, and certainly the Foreign Minister William Hague has stated privately that he supported the FPU's attempt. A decision was taken to now go for it. We were offered a civic reception by the Lord Provost and the Dundee Nablus Twinning Association, which we held in September, just prior to going. You see pictures of the fire engines in Dundee City Square. Ralph Norrie, a fellow FPU comrade here, came down, and we had an absolutely tremendous day explaining what we hoped would be the result of the project. As Mary has indicated, October the 3rd we were ready. We'd met, we brought the kit up from England and Fife, we stored it on the fire engines to the best of our ability and securing everything on the way so that everything was locked, tied down, and the decision was to go by England, Scotland into England, Holland, Germany, Austria, Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Montenegro, Albania, Greece, and then catch a boat from Port of Lavrio to Haifa. The the Mediterranean, the south of the Mediterranean, there are ports that do were exporting when we started the project straight from Turkey. But as you know, Turkey's policies in the Middle East have meant that they've really stopped most trade between themselves and Israel. They've taken quite a hard line on the murder of their citizens by the Israelis, storming the boat. So that was another avenue that we'd obviously lost. We weren't able to go through Turkey, so we had to go through Greece, which actually was a very interesting part of the journey. Not just because I went into Madeira with a fire engine at 40 mile an hour. No, mind. We left on October the 3rd. We travelled obviously to Holland, to Ismaden, and we travelled overland. It took us obviously several days and with real difficulties at the borders in the Balkans. As soon as we went out of the European Union, I have to say graft and corruption came into play as we crossed borders. Although we had numerous documentation, we had vehicle documentation, export documentation, pleas of passages from ambassadors, from different civic authorities in the countries we were passing through, from the European Trade Union movement. All this paperwork when you got to a border meant nothing when you've got private agents working on behalf of the customs. And at the Croatian border we were driven by an armed guard to a cash machine to take out €500, which was different. And you bet I was really hoping the plastic worked. So that was the first, and it was funny, the further south we go, and it shows you the deprivation that's been obviously wreaked on through the capitalist system. The further south you go, the cheaper that it got to bribe your way through. And when we actually got to the Albanian border, we got through for €50 and a cup of tea and a cake. So we got bribed, but we got a cup of tea and a cake and that. So it was quite interesting. But when we got to Greece, we were, because of the timescales, we had to be in Greece and ready to leave on the Monday. And we were running really seriously out of time, and we were probably maybe driving, let's say, out with the recommended hours, and trying to just make up time, because some of the border posts were held up for 7-8 hours, you know, while they pretended they were checking more documentation, and they were really just waiting until we coughed up the dosh. So we were left quite exposed time-wise. But anyway, we had the accident with the fire appliance, but very much the reason we'd taken the two appliances was in the belief that one might break down, because as I said, they're two old appliances with hundreds of thousands of miles on the clock, well maintained absolutely by Scott Roberts and his team at Fleet Management at Blackness Road. Really well maintained, spare pairs with all the kit with us. However, one of the machines was unable to continue. So we managed, it took a day to transfer all the kit onto the other appliance, and obviously cram 5 of us on one fire engine. And we drove the remaining, it was about 300 miles to Athens overnight, and we got into Athens at about, that was on the Sunday, we were about 3 in the morning, we arrived, and thankfully there was a pub still open. That was handy, we needed it. In the morning we met with a contact that had been given, Zoe Lanara, who was International Relations for the GSEE trade union, which is the General Public Sector Union in Greece. They are a public sector union, but they also have some private unions affiliated to them. Zoe met, and we met them for a lunch, but we ended up in our bed really early, and we got up the next morning, and we were invited to meet with the General Secretary of the Greek Federation of Trade Unions, which was really important, we felt, to get the support of the Greek people. We also met with Mr. Abdallah, who is the Greek representative for the Palestinian government, the Palestinian Authority. And we met with him, he came with us to the meeting, and it was, I have to say, a very sobering experience. In the building with us that day at their general headquarters were the members of the Troika, who were tearing up in front of their eyes the conditions of service of the Greek workers that had been enshrined in their politics since the overthrow of the generals in 1974. And there was to be in the room, and they were roaring and crying, and we were trying to, we were just guests, and it was absolutely shocking to see the Greek people, this drive for austerity in Greece that's destroying people's lives. I have to say the streets of Athens were a sight to behold. It was really disturbing, the poverty. You saw obviously the fighting and the trouble that there's been outside the Parliament building. We were outside the Parliament building, went there and actually witnessed some female trade unionists getting a good hiding from the police. and thrown into the butt. And I took a picture, I don't think it's on those ones, and the guy came over and tried to take the camera away while they were knocking lumps at these girls. It was a really concerning couple of days, but I have to say the solidarity by the Greek, from the Greek trade unionists that we were exposed to was a joy. You know, they were absolutely brilliant. The firefighters, part of the federation, put us up in a hotel. They paid for it, they didn't ask for it, and obviously, you know, by that time we were on the Herse of our Greeks, as I say, and we would have taken a tent, to be honest, but they put us up in a hotel, which was great. And we left Greece feeling, you know, really sad to what we saw. That's where the journey got interesting, in the sense that the two lads, Davy and John Docherty, John and Gavin being the other two members of the party, John Docherty and Davy Kay, the logistics, they went on the boat, the SS Pontos at Lavrio. We had decided and we were encouraged to go and meet with the Israeli History Group to try and make sure that the equipment was released when it entered Haifa, which was supposed to be in 2 days' time. It was 48 hours on the boat, stopping in Cyprus. We flew in early hours in Tel Aviv, we got to Ben Gurion, went up to a hotel, got in a bit of a ramshackle hotel, but it was fine. We contacted the British Embassy immediately to tell them we were there and asked to meet with them, and we arranged a meeting with their Consul General that afternoon. He came out with an assistant to visit us. He expressed the concerns that the British government had at our presence. He did say that he had been told prior to leaving not to go, which was sort of true. We sort of ignored that, like, man. But he did say, however, on his examination of the documentation that we had, he believed that we had done everything in informing the Israeli authorities and informing the Palestinian authorities through the paperwork that they would be involved in, that we should have been able to transfer the equipment. There was the Jewish Feast of the Sukkot that was taking place at the time. The Israelis did say that once it landed, the Feast of the Sukkot, you will not get it out that day. However, we may try and assist. You know, he did say he would try and do it. Try and assist us in gaining a lease by writing to the Israeli, through the UK ambassador in Tel Aviv, to the Israeli government. We went and met with the Israeli History Group that evening. We were due to meet them at 5 o'clock. We were still there at 9:30. We had a 4.5 hour meeting with Avital Shapira and another colleague from, she's the international officer for the Israeli History Group, where we shared a frank, open and honest discussion on the Israeli-Palestinian situation and future relations between the UK trade unions and the Israeli History Group. We obviously went absolutely around the houses. We discussed the illegal occupation, the military occupation, the history of the State of Israel, everything. We discussed that, and I know you could talk for longer than 4.5 hours, but this was in between really screaming and shouting at one another. This was a very, very robust debate we had. We did meet also two Israeli Arabs who were there, firefighters, one from Netanya and one from East Jerusalem, which was interesting. That was what we were there for as well, to meet firefighters from we'll talk and speak to firefighters from any country. And it was interesting to listen to the Israeli Arabs' take on the current situation. At the end of the meeting, they did inform us that if they were able to help, they would. However, they believed that in the short to medium terms that the equipment was being impounded. It would be impounded. So we left there without, well, let's say we weren't feeling too good when we got back to the hotel. But what we did do is we contacted the embassy again and told them what happened at the meeting. We also contacted our logistics back here to explain the problem, and we also managed to get a hold of the two lads on the boat, which had been delayed and was going to be 24 hours late and coming in on they wouldn't be there for the Friday, and this was the Monday evening. So on the Tuesday we decided to just get as quickly as we could to Nablus, because the Israelis were quite clearly stating that the problem was on behalf of the Palestinians, that they had let them down by not producing the proper documentation in an appropriate manner. The Israeli military organisation who organises any importation is COGA, and the COGA had said that they didn't receive the information, they hadn't received the documentation in time to assist them and allow us to deliver the kit. We couldn't either verify or disagree with them really, because we said, as far as we are aware, we have been, there's a letter from Mayor Ariaish, there's information from the fire department to say that they have sent all the documentation. It was interesting to note the tone of the conversation and how they spoke about the Nablus municipality against the Palestinian Authority. And that was quite strange for us, because we didn't expect that degree of animosity directed towards the Nablus municipality, especially when you mentioned Mayor Ariaish. And the next day we tried in every manner or means to get access into the occupied West Bank. We tried to get in through public transport to drop us off. The first 10 taxi drivers told us, I hope it was Yiddish they were speaking to us in, because or that was the strangest swear they've ever heard. When we told them where we were wanting to go, they were just not interested. Eventually, through the concierge at the hotel, he said he had a guy he thought who might take us, and an ex-colonel in the Israeli Defence paratroopers came, and this lad had great knowledge of the area, obviously having dropped into it a few hundred times. And he was, I have to say, he was really good company, and got him around to the idea that we should just rename the whole area Palestine. He thought that was a reasonably good idea, as long as it was run by Israelis. But he was quite much fun. But he did take us to the border, and we managed to contact through mobile PGFTU, the Palestinian General Federation. A contact we had, Mohammed Amara, a great guy, really helpful. And Mohammed had decided to come through along with the firefighters from Nablus who met us at the border, and it was great, obviously, meeting with friends. We were driven immediately into the fire station at Nablus, bags still in the back of the 4x4, and we were first meeting that day was with the Palestinian firefighters on the station, the Nablus municipality firefighters. We spoke to them. And it would certainly appear to us through the discussion there was a heated debate between the Palestinian trade unions and the firefighters in Nablus. There was obviously a disagreement of some degree that my Arabic is not too good, but I could understand that they weren't happy with one another. We were then immediately taken over to the PGFTU building, which sits adjacent to the fire station, and we met with the Trades Council. The leader of the Trades Council, and he gave us a warm welcome and obviously expressed the desire to help us and assist us free the kit as soon as possible. However, he acknowledged there had been failings in the efforts of the Nablus municipality. We again weren't able to take any sides on this, because we had nobody had demonstrated any other than goodwill towards us, so we weren't going to be critical of anybody, especially in a country that's occupied by military and unable to function as a proper either local or regional or national government, so we weren't going to be critical. We were then asked by the PGFTU if we would travel to Ramallah for an immediate meeting with General Rizik, who is the general and head of the Palestinian Authority Civil Defence, who is in charge of all firefighting capabilities within the Palestinian Authority governed areas. So that's what we did. We went straight to Ramallah, and we were introduced to General Rizik, and he's obviously the hero of the fire that was in 2010. The Palestinian firefighters went and actually showed the Israeli firefighters how to fight fires. Unfortunately, there was a large loss of life when a prison van was caught trying to escape, and everybody in the prison van was killed. Some Israeli firefighters were killed in that effort as well. So anyway, General Rizik explained to us in very good English that there had been issues, that if only they had been aware of what we were trying to do, they believed that they could have assisted us more. But we obviously came to the understanding that this had been very much taken on board by the Nablus municipality, and they very much kept it in-house and tried to do this independently without informing, or they informed, but without gaining the assistance or approval of the Palestinian Authority. I apologise. Sorry. Yeah, so what we did then, we obviously managed to relate him that we would be greatly appreciative if he was able to assist us in releasing the kit from Haifa, and he said it could take a little while, but he would make sure that all the documentation was in order, and he would contact his officer in with the Colgate, who normally works with, and they would do their very best to facilitate the safe arrival of the kit and the safe arrival of Dave and John, who were still on the boat, and had great concerns for. What followed in the next few days was absolutely brilliant. It was great to meet the Palestinian people. We went into Martyrs Square. We sat with the mothers of the martyrs, the ladies who were taking part in a fast, waiting on the release of their kids and their husbands and their brothers. At that stage, as you know, they were going through the process of the release of the prisoners for the Israeli a lad that was captured way back. So that process was ongoing. We met with the mayor several times. We met with the governor and the deputy governor, Mrs. Annan. We assured them that we believe that there would be strong links forged now between the Scottish government and the Palestinian government in relation to aid, because obviously we had official documentation coming from the Scottish government. We also met Ken Brand, who is the non-government officer who runs the FireSec department for the Palestinian Authority. Ken is an ex-deputy chief in Northamptonshire. Ken was of great assistance while we were there. Great knowledge of the Palestinian area, a great feeling that the fire service in Palestine is a way to improve. As General Razak told us, that the Palestinian Authority will to take ownership of the municipality fire departments. As you know, the municipality fire departments are still independent of the Palestinian Authority. We met obviously in the PLO offices, which was absolutely tremendous, until we found that it was the third in the last 5 years, because the Israelis just keep blowing them up. So it was a great place to visit though, and we also visited obviously Yasser Arafat's tomb in Ramallah. We visited Jerusalem. We visited the new training centre they have of the fire service in just outside Jericho, which again was absolutely tremendous. Great visit there, and the firefighters from Nablus that we met, the 8 lads that were absolutely wonderful. Great hospitality. It was great to see how the civic society. It was great to see how the schools. And I was speaking to Sean when I visited and spoke to the kids up in Craigie High School, how keen they are to get links with Dundee schools. And that Dundee link just shone right through the visit. Everybody, when you were walking in these thronged streets, you just heard Dundee all the time. You know, they knew where you were from. It was in the local press. We did a couple of interviews for the local press and TV stations, Man News Agency, and there was another couple of news agencies that ran a story on us. And it was just a great visit. But what we didn't think for any, it was a holiday. It was not a holiday. Every day was part of the visits, meetings and discussions. And we made sure that the main priority was to get that kit from Haifa. John and Davey arrived on the Friday, thankfully safe and sound, although they did go through the normal interrogation by the Israeli authorities. But they were released quite quickly. And obviously they were able to tell us that the kit had been impounded and was already starting to cost us, because of the Israeli port authorities in Haifa were going to charge us for storage. We kept in touch with the Israeli History Group to see if we could push it on. Ken Brand, as I say, the guy that works for the NGO, he was a really good contact. He had lots and lots of contacts between the Israelis and the Palestinian authorities. So we left on the Sunday back to the UK. The other 4 lads headed back home after it was 2 weeks exactly, obviously. I went straight to Westminster, where we met with Jim Malone and managed to get the ear of the FCO again, the Foreign Commonwealth Office, and asked them to bring as much pressure as possible to bear and to get this equipment released. It was sitting there, it was ready to go. And there was one interesting aspect of it, that the Israelis demanded that the fire engine could not be used for firefighting. They actually demanded that they could have the kit, they could have the fire kit, but they were not getting the fire engine. They don't allow 20-year-old fire engines to run about in Israel, and I was looking at some of theirs, and my God, they're 50 years old somewhere. But anyway, that was every excuse under the sun, every piece of red tape they placed before us that we cut, they put another one. It didn't matter whether it was a forum, whether it was a certificate, whether it was a signed degree. Everything that we managed to produce for them time and time again just became a hindrance. We kept up the pressure. After a period where it seemed to be stalling, we decided to push the button again, and we held two press over a 24-hour period. I went down to Westminster. We had a press event for support of Friends of Palestine, and the most people in the room were the trade union Friends of Israel. Absolutely incredible. And they were looking to obviously tell a story of cooperation, and I know that there has, through some support of Israeli documents, have tried to say that we thanked them for their efforts. Well, I would say they were being just a little bit conservative with the truth there. We actually stated, it's quite simply, that we had travelled through 12 borders, and when we got to the 13th, it stuck. Why is that? You know, you're supposed to be a Western, you tell us you're a Western civilised democracy, and yet we've came through some bandit country. But I'll tell you, they never stopped us because we were taking humanitarian aid. Maybe wanting money off us, but you're stopping us for what? For delivering humanitarian aid. And so that didn't wash, and we said that at the meeting. The fact that the Friends of Israel have produced a document to say we were thankful, what we did, we acknowledged the assistance that had been offered us by the history group. That's what we acknowledged, and we had to do that. As human beings, we had to acknowledge it. However, on the context of what we were saying was, there's absolutely no doubt when we got there, if the history group had said the equipment's going through, that equipment we went through. They used it as a tool to get us back to the table, and that's what they were using it for. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But we still felt we would swallow the pride and make sure the kit got there. So further correspondence went between Jen Sec, our president, various members of Parliament, various members of the Scottish Parliament. We had, as I say, the two 24-hour press events with the cross-party Friends of Palestine at Holyrood, which was very well received. And on December the 2nd, we got the word that the kit had been delivered through great assistance from Ken Brand again, managed to deliver the fire engine, no problem, driven by, once it got to Palestine, by Palestinians. And as you saw by the photos, it's driving in Nablus today, with Dundee to Nablus FBU. All the kit was used immediately, and now instead of having to share a set of kit between three, we've got two sets each. So I have to say, at the end of it all, and all the tribulations that we had on the way, I wouldn't have changed that. It was absolutely terrific to see the pictures that came back and the phone calls we got from Palestine. And as I say, through the efforts, many people, not just the five that went on the team, but so many people behind us, ordinary FPU members, the Tayside branch at FPU, the Scottish region, I mean, just great support and effort. And when you hear that it's the first time ever that an independent aid project like this has been delivered in the years that the struggle of the Palestinian people, great to see that the resolution 194 was so much part in that. Obviously you're not long back, and you see the President Abbas's picture all over the place with the resolution 194. And I left actually the Middle East not feeling sorry at all for the Palestinians. Wouldn't have anyway. But such a progressive people, they're so intent on that peaceful path towards statehood. The people I felt sorry for was Israelis. And those on the left in Israel that we did meet are in a corner. They believe they're in a corner. They believe that there's a real issue with regards to their existence as left, as being on the left of politics, and to think that it was supposed to be a socialist and independent Palestine as Ben Gurion had originally proposed. And now they're being obviously carved up by the religious right. The settlers is obviously a huge issue that we were exposed to, and I know there's been the tree planting that Nick was talking about. And when we spoke to the Deputy Governor, Mrs Annan, and when we asked her if we could give further assistance, she said, could you please get some small tractors? So that's the next thing that we're looking to assist and get some small tractors over there to assist in the replanting of the olive groves, because we saw them burning, we drove past them, we were wearing steel helmets in some areas because of that. They're just taking the settlers are taking pot shots at any Arab they believe is encroaching their settlements. A really worrying situation, but we still believe through this strength of feeling, public feeling throughout the world, and speaking to fellow trade unionists throughout the world on the blogs that we've been doing to cover the trip to Nablus. I think the time's coming soon and we'll all see statehood for Palestine. I certainly hope it will be in my lifetime, and I think it will be. But thanks for listening, and I'm quite delighted to take questions if there are any, but thanks for listening.
Thanks very much.